Hello, hello. I'm so excited to be here today. I have invited Leslie Humphrey to come and have a conversation with me about Pathos Collective and what we are creating for the community of Baton Rouge and beyond. Leslie is my personal business coach, but not just me. She has been coaching for the last 20 years and has worked with thousands of women on creating successful businesses. So as I was creating this idea for Pathos Collective, I thought there would be no better person to have a conversation about it than with Leslie. So thank you, Leslie.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is such an exciting project.
I'm really excited about it.
I cannot wait for you to spill the beans to all of Baton Rouge on what is coming.
Well, before we dive into the concept as a whole, I would love to hear, I know I kind of gave a very high-level overview of who you are and what you do, but give us some more background about your story and the kind of work that you do.
So I have been an entrepreneur for 20 years, and I started my first online business with children, 5 children between the ages of 2 and 9.
Wow.
So when I started my first business, they were 2, 3, 5, 7, and 9.
Get out. That's crazy.
Yeah. And so I was navigating being a mom, being a wife to an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And so he had his own business. I had started my own business. I had 5 little kids. I was homeschooling, and we were super involved in our community as well. And I learned very quickly that all of the different roles as a woman had me feeling like I didn't know which way to turn for support. I had to go to this group of women as a mom, or this group of women for professional advice, and other women at church for different advice. And so I really, as I navigated early entrepreneurship and motherhood together, it was where I cut my teeth on figuring out how to help other women how to really become successful while they're embracing the fullness of all of the different dynamics of their lives.
Yes. And what I love about your story is you always hear people say there's no such thing as balance. Like you can't have your cake and eat it too. And you have to choose between one or the other. But when looking at your story, I mean, you were the homeschool mom, 5 kids. That's not an easy job at all. I have 2, and I can't even imagine how to add 3 more into the mix there. So you homeschooled 5 kids, which is a full-time job. You were the wife of an entrepreneur, which is a full-time job. And you were your own entrepreneur and ran your own business, which is a full-time job. And so you are the perfect example of how when a woman is fully supported and encouraged, you really can have your cake and eat it too. And there is such a thing as balance.
Absolutely. And it doesn't look balanced and it doesn't feel balanced. So I say all the time, balance is BS. But the truth of the matter is that what we use as a metric for balance is just a different type of scale. The balance was that I got to have a career. I got to have raising my kids and homeschooling. I got to do all those things because I was courageous enough to seek the support system that I needed at every turn. So it wasn't balanced day to day. There were weeks that things were out of balance and uncomfortable, but I was never in a position that I felt like I couldn't keep going, right? I would lean into the people around me, into my different communities. And that's the messaging that I have as I work with women, is that you can have it all. Maybe not all of it every day.
All the time.
or at the same time. Yeah. But it's not about choosing this or that. It's not about having to set aside your health to be a professional woman, or set aside your dreams as an entrepreneur or as a professional woman or as building a career while you raise your kids. It doesn't have to be either or, but there are skills involved that you have to embrace, as well as then what we're going to talk about is bringing in the community behind you to help lift you up. A rising tide lifts all ships. We know this. This is the mantra, and more we realize the truth in that, right? That's not a new expression, but oh my goodness, it rings more and more true every day.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that everybody's probably really excited to hear the whole conversation about the space, but one more question before we dive into that on this idea of balance. In our coaching, we talk a lot about the word alignment and core values. And so I would love to hear from your perspective before really diving in. What does it look like to you to be in alignment with your core values? And how do you know when you're starting to get out of alignment? So for example, you've got all of these different things that you're working on: family, business, marriage. And even though it is chaotic and it's not 100% perfect, you're confident because you're in alignment with your core values and what you're working on. So can you share a little bit of that perspective? Because I think it'd be helpful in our conversation about what we're creating.
Ooh, so rich. That is so rich. Well, and you and I talk a lot about it. I feel like this question I should be asking you as the coach. So you're sort of sneaking this around. It was like asking the teacher for the answers.
Exactly. Yes. I tricked you. I put you in front of a camera and mic, and now you're going to tell me all of the answers to everything.
Well, so part of the work is that we do know as individuals what are our priorities, what are our core values. Because if we are just winging it, which
I've done.
Yep. You can relate to this, I know, right? As we've worked together, I can look back at you in the beginning, and you, because you're so committed to the success and you had the vision of what you wanted to build in career, it's like running with your hair on fire in a full out sprint.
Yes.
But the truth is if you don't pause and really be super connected and dialed in with what you actually want and what's most important, you can run far and fast and turn around and realize you left everything you were running for behind you.
Yes.
So making sure that this is what I do with my clients as I get started with them is we talk about, okay, so you want to build a multi-million-dollar business. You want to be on the cover of Forbes, whatever it is, right? That's a great vision, but why those things?
Right.
What else? What comes when you have built a multi-million-dollar business? What comes from that?
What's your life like?
That's right. When I was building my first multi-million-dollar business online, I very much was so connected with my why that there were times where there were weeks that I wasn't there putting my kids to bed. And I would have to stop and say, okay, one of the top priorities for me was that I was home for bedtimes more than I wasn't.
Yep.
And I was building what I was building so that I had time freedom. It didn't mean that I was home every night, but it meant that I knew when I was starting to get out of alignment, if I was gone more nights than not.
Yes.
For more than just...
It was like a red...
That's right.
Blinking light that
That's
said,
right.
hey, you're getting out of alignment.
That's right. And so as I'm helping my clients really get rooted in their space of, okay, what am I doing this for? We all hear it, what's your why and the value of that. And I think it's gotten watered down over the years because it's just any cliche, right? A cliche is what it is for a reason because it is true. And yet the more you hear it, you tend to kind of dust it off. The reality is your core values come down to the things that are most important to you. And then you create the plan to build your success that is in alignment with your core values. And it doesn't mean that if you're doing what you're doing to create freedom for your family, it doesn't mean that you can't get there without sacrificing some time. Or I like to say, instead of the word sacrificing, investing. Yeah. It's an investment. A lot of people say sacrifice, and it can feel that way, but an investment means that you're putting your time in one place so that you can have a return in another, right? And so through that space, as you are investing 1 week, like for you with the launch of the collective, this week is out of balance if we were going
out
off
of
this.
balance. Yes.
And also knowing that next month, you're probably going to recalibrate. And if in our coaching relationship, that's going to be something that we'll talk about moving forward is this short sprint. you're a little out of balance for that, but we will recalibrate and get you back into alignment to where you can be focused on hitting your goals and being in alignment with your core values. And the other part of your question was, well, what does it look like when you're out of balance? How do you see it? And that's when you're making excuses for all the things that you're not getting done or not getting to that are important. For example, in your marriage, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you particularly, but I know for me, there were some weeks where I was so leaned into business because it was a 1 week or a 2 week or maybe an end of the month push. And so I would have to lean into my husband a bit more and say, hey, I just need your support for a minute. And that was totally fine. But then knowing that if I kept that pace up past what I said I would, I could feel the tension in our marriage. I could feel that we were out of alignment and that he was feeling taken advantage of. And so there are always signs and clues. It's just us being aware that along the way, we've got to stop and take a beat.
Yes.
Whether it's at the beginning of the day, at the beginning of the week, at the end of the week, and really say, okay, back to what's most important and why am I doing what I'm doing?
And I think that is the perfect transition into what we're creating. Because I think that so many women, it's not that they don't have the idea or they don't have the ability to grow in their career. It's that they don't have the clarity on what living in alignment means. And they feel like when we need to rest, that is just that they're failing or that they're not working hard enough. When really it's so valuable to have people in your corner who see like, hey, you need to rest. A perfect example of this is as I was launching Pathos Collective, one night in particular, you remember, I was up for 24 hours straight, dreaming, building, working out all of the details. And because I have women in my corner, like you, to call me up and say, this is what this is going to look like if you get another lack of sleep night like this. And so here's how we need to, you called it energy mitigation. So you didn't say that it was absolutely ridiculous that I stayed up all night. But you said, here's how you mitigate your energy when you have really big ideas. And more women need access to other women like that who can see through you and know that, hey, I recognize what's going on. I fully support you. Now, how can I support the other aspects of you to make sure that you have what it takes to keep on going? And that's what we're doing with Pathos Collective.
Yeah, so let's share it.
Let's share it. Okay, so Pathos Collective is a first of its kind all-in-one support hub for women in business and working moms. And really the true heart behind it is that we have a holistic approach to supporting women because we understand that you have to be a million things at a million different times as a woman. And this space is created not just to be a place where you work to build your careers, build your businesses, but a place where you get all of the resources, the training, the community, and everything that you need to feel like you can accomplish anything that you want to accomplish. A way that I like to phrase it is that we are cracking the code on community building and support for women. We're getting curious. We're turning it into a science of what women need to feel fully empowered and like they belong in every space that they enter. So that is what Pathos Collective is. And I remember, gosh, this has been moving really fast. Right?
You think?
A little bit. I don't think I've told anybody this publicly, but this idea, this idea came out 2 years ago. I've been thinking about this, having so many conversations with women, and I'm sure you've experienced, I know from our conversations that you've experienced this before, but when you have a vision in your mind of something that you want to create, and then you hear another woman talk about their pain points, and you know that your idea would solve that, it's like a little tug on your heart every single time. Every time you hear a pain point, it's like dink, dink, you're hearing that. And that has been my journey for the last 2 years. 2 years ago, my husband took a last minute emergency work trip to London for 3 weeks. He left within 24 hours and bought a one-way ticket. And we did not have the infrastructure for childcare. And so I was running my business and practically single parenting for 3 weeks. And that was so eye-opening to me that so many women do things like that. You know, I had been blessed up until that point where my husband worked from home and we parented together. But now that he was out of town, my eyes were open to the struggle that the majority of women face, which is not having the infrastructure for support, not having the childcare, not having the mom friends who are in a same place of life as they are to just say, I see you and you're doing a great job and you're showing up. So that's where the idea came from 2 years ago, and kind of brushed it off as 10 years. This will be my one day. And over the last 2 years, at almost every conference, every conversation that I've had with women in the same stage of life as me, this idea has been popping back up over and over again. And of course, there are several things out there that support women, but nothing that checks off all the boxes like this. And so actually, it was about 3 weeks ago, almost a month ago, that you came to Baton Rouge for the first time. And we hosted an event called the And Society, which you launched in Florida. And I'll give you kind of an opportunity to talk about that and about what it is. But at that event, what we experienced was that everyone in that room experienced the same pain point. And that whether or not we had children or we were in corporate America or running our own businesses, we all struggled with the balance. We all struggled between fitting in one box of being successful and powerful or nurturing and sensitive. And I saw a lot of hurt in that room, and I saw a lot of hope in that room. And it was like somebody karate kicked me off a cliff to just run full speed ahead. And I remember this because this event was hosted on a Thursday. We had a workshop on Friday. You flew home that evening, or no, that Saturday, I think. And it was Monday night that I stayed up 24 hours, and we got on a phone call at 6 a.m. on Monday morning. And I said, this is it. This is what I'm doing. And we've been running ever since.
It was just a minute ago.
Literally just a minute ago. And here we are, and we're launching, and we're going for it. So what I would love to dive into, and we'll have an opportunity to talk a little bit about the And Society, but you have quite literally coached thousands of women to run successful businesses, to balance everything that they're passionate about, to live in alignment with their core values. So what I want to hear from you is, why do you feel like community in this regard, community with other women, is important to a woman's success?
Ooh. It truly is imperative. And we are in a time where women have always had excessive pressure on themselves. This is not new. But now add to it social media, add to it, there's just so many different components in it. And so without going off into deep diving.
Right, that'll be another podcast. Right. Yes.
Right. But because of that, women are so hard on themselves, and they feel like they're supposed to not only do everything, but they feel like they need to do everything well.
Perfectly.
It's true.
It's so true.
It's true.
Yes.
And so the idea of community, is very much like, from my perspective, as we're going to talk about this, it's a similar thing as self-care. You can use the word and it can be thrown around, and it's great. In and of itself, community, it's important and awesome and helpful, and it's warm and fuzzy, just like self-care.
Yes.
And also, we need to take that concept and really understand that women in community, the science is there that proves that women that are in true community with other women are far performing women that are out there doing it alone. There is so much research on this out there. And the power of community means that it doesn't mean that you have to master everything and be the person that is perfect in the community. It means that where you are holding strong and someone else is having a low moment, you can step in. And it doesn't mean doing the work for them, but it means being there to help fill gaps if you can, both physically or just emotionally.
Yeah, absolutely.
And women will absolutely bounce back faster through a hard time when they have other women there, even if they're watching from afar, even if it's not someone that you know, but you're closely, but you know that they've just gone through something. Women will take that inspiration to heart.
Yes.
They will turn it into action and they will say, well, she could do it, so could I.
Yes. And that's kind of what we experienced at that event, right? It's just even a minor amount of community. That was 2 hours, I think, of people having high level intentional conversations about how we can support each other. And after 2 hours, the amount of energy that was generated from that room, I mean, it created Pathos Collective. Imagine if we had that all day, every day, where a woman can just come in and get that community support so that when they have the crazy idea, they can come in and they can talk about it and they can leave feeling energized instead of weighed down.
I think that one of the things to clarify as you're putting this out there for everyone to learn about is that this is not just the co-working space for everyone to come in and potentially work and sit around and sing Kumbaya and like pump each other up. Well, there is some pump up.
We're going to have a little bit of that, but that's not it.
Exactly. There's space for that. And this is also a space where you're not having to go out and figure out who's going to be my business coach, who's going to do my branding, where can I find the best business banker, how can I get a small business loan, how do I set up a small business? You've got everything under one roof where someone can come in, and if they need the Kumbaya day, there's probably someone or a group of women in there that day that need it too or are ready to give that. But also there are going to be women in there and other businesses in there as a part of the collective that are ready to give and truly serve the community in a way that empowers women to show up in a way they've never had the resources or the vision to do before.
Yes, absolutely. So it's combining so many amazing resources. The whole concept of referral networking, right? Having a list of people that these are my go-to. I trust them because I know them. I work right next to the next cubicle. So when I have a project, I can just go tap on their shoulder and ask them for help. So it's bringing that referral, that networking aspect to it, really intentional networking. It's also bringing the solution to the workspace. I can't tell you how many women I talk to that they're like, I just want to get out of my house. Like I can't work next to my vacuum knowing that my house has to be vacuumed because we don't have compartmentalized brains. So if there's a project that needs to be done in our home, our brain is in home mode. And it's hard for us to get out of that. So creating a space that says, hey, don't think about your house. It's okay. Just come work on your business. And then obviously the fun social aspect of it that we so deeply desire as well.
Well, there's so much guilt that women bring into the workforce, right? I've said it all along. I mean, I have adult children now. And since I had my first child almost 30 years ago,
Same.
It was the phrase is there's no guilt like a mother's guilt. Right? And this is, so what happens is, and I don't know, I'll just say it. I'll just be frank. For a man, it is expected. You have a family, you have children, and you go to work.
Right.
And if the kids are sick,
You go to work.
you go to work. And the wife, she is figuring out, okay, am I going to cancel my meetings? Am I going to do my meetings from home? Am I going to do them during nap time? Am I going to do them from the doctor's office?
Yep.
Am I going to put the kid in the car seat and go for a drive and hope that they sleep so I can do this call? Women, we just have a different set of expectations, whether it's other people put on us or we take on ourselves. It doesn't matter. It is a different space. And with Pathos, the real beauty is that the other people in the building, they understand it's so much more than a duality.
Yeah.
It's so many different sides of the life of a professional woman. And there's so many different expectations put on her, both from her as well as the world.
Yeah.
And being able to go to a place and know that other people there truly do understand. And if you were up all night, whether it's because you were in a creative space or the baby was sick,
awake, it's one or the other.
right? Or maybe a little bit of both.
Yes.
Right? And to know that you can be honored and celebrated, and also someone can be there to say, hey, let's run through these things. Let's get the strategy going. Let's get you set up. And then why don't you try to be home by 5:00 tonight so you can unplug and have a family night?
Yeah. And how can I support you in that? Because I know that this is your goal. And so I know that if I walk away from this desk, you're just going to keep on working. But you've got a group of women who see your exhaustion and to remind you, it's important for you to be home with your family. It's important for you to go home and rest.
Yeah.
How can I help you do that? And honestly, I mean, so many people feel like there's competition between women, but I think that if women are just given the opportunity to support, we go above and beyond of what can I do? Anything that I can do to help, to take one or two things off your plate.
So one of the things that I've observed over all of these years working with women is that if you bring women together intentionally, what could be a super competitive environment turns into the most powerful, supportive community ever. Then what you've got is energy and collaboration in a way that changes the world.
It does.
And it's a huge part of why I created the And Society, is because I watched women feeling so isolated because they felt like they couldn't bring what they have into the world because everything is so competitive. But when you bring women together with an intentionality, is that a word?
Intentionality. Yes. Yeah.
Nice. When you bring them together with that, the collaboration is what wins, not the competitiveness.
Every time.
It's true. People,
It's the disconnect and the behind the scenes.
If you allow
that's where the competition happens. Where it's like, she talked to my client or she did this, and it's when we are not close that competition happens. But the second that I'm in a room with somebody in my industry, I automatically go and say, hi, how are you different?
Yeah.
Like what makes you unique? Because I need to understand that, because maybe my clients can get some value from you. And we're just designed like that, to be empathetic and supportive. And so we're breaking down those walls between women that social media, the internet, all of that has put up, where we are sitting behind the scenes and judging and wishing that and comparing. And we're not doing that. We're just all being in a space as one and realizing that that's what we need. And I think too, and this is kind of just a new thought that I came up with as we're talking. That's why I love conversations like this. But an example that I've been using a lot is that the reason why women need support differently than men is because our minds are designed differently. We are uncompartmentalized, which means if our kids are screaming their heads off in the morning and it's a bad morning, we bring that into work. If traffic was terrible, we bring that into work. Like it's hard. But similarly to how our minds operate, so do our communities, right? Like we are no walls up. And if we put everybody in a space where it's not rooms, where we're broken apart, but we tear down those walls and we make our community uncompartmentalized, that's the way that we're going to feel the most support.
So powerful.
It's going to be amazing.
It's going to be amazing.
It's going to be absolutely amazing. So let's talk a little bit of numbers here, because I did my research. So my coach would be so proud of me that I did. But specifically, this space, it's not just for women who own their own companies. It's for women who want to grow in their careers, climb the ladder. They want to become anything that they want to become. We're there to support them for that. But talking specifically about women in business, like running their own businesses, I did some research that found that women-owned businesses are launching at double the rate of male-owned businesses, which means women are starting businesses faster and more frequently. However, And I can't remember what the percentage was, but I think it was something like 73% of women would say that they are confident that they would survive a recession, knowing that they're resilient even before they face adversity. We know that, like, hey, whatever comes our way, we're ready to tackle it. The issue that women in business face is that we just aren't directed in the right area to really scale. So 56% of women, I think it's in the 50 percentile, 53 or 56, launch and run their businesses only using personal savings.
Right.
Which means a lot of women are waiting until they have personal savings to launch their businesses. Only 15% ever get any sort of loan for their business. And of all venture capital that is out there, only 2.1% go to women. And so what that tells me, a lot of people take those numbers and they interpret them as being unfair. And to me, that's not how I see those numbers. To me, it means that we're lacking awareness of how to get access to the resources and the capital and the training that we need to take our small little side hustle business into a scalable and profitable company.
Well, I would agree with that. And also the perspective of it's women having the courage to say, I'm worth it, to go after it. So part of it is knowledge, right? Knowing that there are small business loans and things available to them. And also knowing that you're worth the risk. I say it all the time when I'm with my coaching clients. Are you a person in your life that's willing to bet on you?
Ooh.
Right?
A lot of women would struggle with that question.
Well, they have this inner conflict because half of their brain says, yes, I've got this. Every woman you talk to, when you get her on her own, whatever she's passionate about, whatever she desires, she starts talking and you see the fire. It is.
Oh, yes.
You can feel the heat.
Yes.
And at the same time, she thinks to herself, but who's going to take care of the kids? And what about this?
Who's going to take me seriously?
And there's so much inner conflict in that. And so half of her is saying, I bet on me every time. And the other half of her is saying, I am not sure that I could do this right now. But life is all about seasons. And if you find yourself always waiting for the next season before you ever take action, you're going to be late in life and realize you never took action in any season. Yeah. Right? And that's the difference. So those numbers that you shared, while you could take them and interpret them as there isn't as much available for women, I would say whether that's true or not, there's also a space where women have to decide for themselves, right, that they're worth a gamble. Yeah. So let's go do it.
Getting a loan to scale, going for investments to scale, those are all things where you have to externalize your belief in yourself.
Oh, yes.
And that is really hard for a woman to do. We haven't talked at all about what I do in my day job in this, but I do communications and speaker training. And time again, I work with women a lot who say, man, I'm a high power executive in my day job, but something about talking about what I created is making me shaking in my boots. And I said, well, that's every single one of us, because we have to externalize a feeling that is so deep inside of us that terrifies us to bring to light that we are worth it and that we're worth taking a bet on. And we constantly have that fear that maybe we might be wrong. So creating a space where women always feel like you are worth the bet. In fact, I think I'm going to get a muralist to paint that. You are worth the bet, right? Yeah. Let's go for it. And kind of along those lines, just to talk about some of the smaller details of this space, I envision walking into an area, and this was kind of an idea that I just had while we were talking about this, but having like a marker where you can check what kind of day it is for you, right? Like I'm in a giving mood. I'm ready to support. I can be encouraged, or I need to be encouraged. This is one of those days. So we can just take a glance at the board, see who's in our space, and see who needs a hug. See who needs a pat on the back. And we can disperse that, knowing that today I have more energy. So I'm going to go check that board and see what women in the space today do not have that energy. And I'm going to give them a little bit of mine. Brene Brown talks about that, having, giving 100% and 100%, and knowing that, like, if somebody is down to 80%, give a little bit and bring their percentages up if you have more to give. Another aspect, which I actually learned back at my days of working for Lululemon for the employee discount, because I needed all the leggings. But something that we did, which I will be incorporating into the space, is at the beginning of each shift, we had a clearing moment, we called it, where we would say out loud to our supervisors if there was anything that we needed to clear in order to be fully present at work that day. And there wasn't any sort of like expectation, like you need to, get this out of your mind so you can be present. But a few times I came in and I said, yeah, I really have a migraine and I'm really struggling with the idea of running around the floor. And without fail, they would say, I hear that. How about you go on the pant wall and just fold pants all day so that you're not moving, you don't have to have many conversations. And so we are rarely given an opportunity to say, what's bothering you today in this moment?
Right now.
What is the barrier? What's preventing you? And when you voice that, you'd be shocked at how many people come around you and say, oh, I can help you with that. Here it is. Here's the hammer. Break down the barrier.
Yeah.
Now you're free to go do what you want to do.
So good.
So good. It's going to be amazing. Okay, so we're wrapping up our time here for today, but I'm really excited about this. A lot of people have asked me, this is it's a big thing to take on. Like, why now? Why you? And something that I'm just so passionate about is, you said at the beginning, a rising tide raises all boats, right? This is not about me. It's about knowing that everyone in our community needs this. And as soon as you break down that barrier and says, this is possible, people are going to flock and they're going to do impossible things. And so that's what I'm relying on my community to do here, to see this and to say, we recognize the need, we see the gap, we're going to come in and we're going to help you fill it. And if I can make an ask to my community, the vision for what we are going to accomplish with Pathos Collective, it is way beyond me. Way beyond me. And in order to accomplish it, we have to have the community, women, men alike, businesses that want to support women in the way that we need to be supported, to come behind us and say, we're ready, we're engaged, and what do you need for us to help? And when we have that, 2025 is just going to be an absolutely insane year.
Epic.
Well, thank you, Leslie, for coming today and for all of your lovely insight. And I know that now that we have Pathos Collective here in Baton Rouge, you will be taking a lot of trips out to visit us and see us.
Absolutely.
I'm saying that on the record so that she has no choice but to do it.
I've already proven I'm going to.
So if you could say one final thought to specifically potential community members of Pathos Collective, what would it be?
This community is going to be the thing that most women crave and desire, but don't realize they can have. And the only way you can have it is if you show up for it. You're opening the doors. We're doing the thing, doing the work to put it all together. And now it's actually coming. And I believe that Baton Rouge will have a record number of new female-owned businesses in 2025.
Absolutely.
Because of Pathos Collective. Because there will be a place that not only women can come and have childcare and have a focus place where they're not worried about doing dishes and vacuuming and running errands and all of those other things, but also because they get to walk into the space and know that maybe you haven't eaten today. Maybe you haven't worked out in a few days. You had sick kids and now you're back at it, but you've got childcare. You've got maybe a a noon workout that's in the facility.
In the facility. That's coming. Yes.
You've got a
ready to go meal.
Ready to go
healthy.
meal, right? It's in the fridge, ready for you. You've got everyone on campus that you need to support you.
All you need to do is show up.
All you need to do is show up. So this membership is going to encompass whichever tier. It will encompass so much more for any woman that decides to become part of it than what they can ever envision until they're actually in it.
Yeah.
So just take the leap. Join the community now.
All right. Thank you, Leslie.